Well, tell me, mama, what's going on? Tell me, darling, what's going on?
Welcome back, everybody. Bacon and Egg Show, show number 56, 7/11/2021. What is going on, Jay? It's been a little bit. We're back at it.
What's up? Yeah, a little break, got a little busy. We haven't had a break this long since we started recording, but we were also a little less busy back in those days. But, not exactly a ton going on when we started this show, and but we're gonna adjust some things around and get back to recording on a regular basis. And yeah, man. But no, it's been good. We've had a lot of Austin FC action since the last time we recorded. Some Sluggin Horns wrapped up their season. We got a little bit to talk about today, man. So how you been? Everything been all right?
Yeah, good. Like it's been busy, which is, like you said, a little different than how things were last year at this time. So it's yeah, we're working it out, shuffling schedules around and all that stuff. So yeah, we're good. Where do you want to start, man? Let's get caught up on some news here. We've had quite a bit seems like there's been quite a bit that's happened over the last few weeks. Before we get into Austin FC stuff and get recapped on that, where do you want to start? You want to talk about name, image, likeness, kind of the college athletics news that dropped over the past couple weeks?
I think that's a good place to start. It's one of those things where we've been discussing this for a long time, like that before we started recording this show. I mean, this has been a conversation that's been around for quite a while, and not understanding why players could not profit off of their own name, image, and likeness if they were a scholarship athlete or an athlete at all, for that matter. But it's really the fact that the NCAA had to get out in front of this and do it because all these states were passing legislation, and then the Supreme Court comes out and says, like basically any other company in the world would not get away with what you guys are getting away with.
Right.
So now that this is all happening, the NCAA is like, we don't have any choice but to get out in front of this.
Right.
And so July 1st, right? July 1st was the first day where these athletes could start earning money off of their own name, image, and likeness. And quite a few people have been taking advantage of this already, man. Has anything been standing out to you so far of the past 11 days or so? What these athletes have been doing?
It's been fascinating to kind of see the types of deals that have happened. I mean, you have this wide range of, some guys are just doing cameos, some people are starting clothing lines, which, we can get into kind of the details and all these things of those, but like, and you have someone like Spencer Rattler signing a deal with Raising Cane's Chicken. It's like, get the rat basket at Raising Cane's or something after OU games. Like and then you have the Oregon situation, which to me is that's the kind of the one I'm watching the most. And I think we're going to get into a little bit of recruiting later. We can kind of mention it in the context of this now, but like, it's Nike's partnership, Phil Knight, all this stuff that like he is fully activating the Nike war machine at Oregon, which is going to be really fascinating to watch. I mean, in terms of like, hey, come sign at Oregon and we can basically already get you onto a Nike deal. So when you go to the NFL, you're already within the Nike like ecosystem of marketing and branding and all those things. Like, what a pitch. And that's going to be hard to combat. And you think about a school like Texas, whose outfitter is Nike. Like, I don't know, there's going to be these interesting kind of little conflicts of interest that start coming up here, like it's going to be fascinating, completely fascinating. I mean, it's on like I guess, there's this big rush, like July 1st happens, the floodgates open, everybody's doing everything they can to like work these deals. This is all going to kind of find its level, right? Like, a third string safety that's starting a clothing line is not probably going to make very much money out of this. As much as they think they're going to, they're probably
Yeah.
not. And that venture will fail. And a lot of these will probably fail. And really only the big names and big prominent players are going to be the ones that do make money off this. I mean, and that's where it's kind of at that level. Everybody's going, oh, this is going crazy. This is out of control. It'll all balance out, I think.
Yeah, but it'll also, if there's an athlete that is a football player or a volleyball player or a soccer player who's majoring in fashion, that will allow them, and they're good at what they do, that this now allows them to actually be able to start their brand. So while when we talk name, image, and likeness, and I think when most people talk name, image, and likeness, we really, sometimes we tend to only think about the football players and the basketball players that would really only be using this for exactly what it's meant, what the name of the rule or whatever is, the name, image, and likeness. But this also allows for those other talented, those people that aren't just athletes, that have another field for them to be able to be successful in and start their careers early because of that. And I think that's something that should really be focused on a little bit more as well. But you make a great point, is that this will even itself out. This will all work itself out in terms of who's going to make the most money. Like some of these athletes are making some bigger deals, and across the country, you'll see that, depending on who you are or who your father is, in terms of like Master P's son got a $2 million deal to be an ambassador for a web company. That it actually, and that particular company happens to, like, their biggest focus is on putting focus on historical Black colleges and universities. So there's a tie in there, but and his son is playing at Tennessee State. So there, there's little things like that where sort of it doesn't just matter who you are, it's also who you know. And if you can make that sort of money, and I think that that's the whole argument here, is that these players should have been able to do that from the beginning while still being able to have their amateur status or their NCAA status intact. And you're seeing it from all ends, all scales. Like the University of Miami, for example, there's a deal now. Where are you gonna talk?
I was going to mention that in terms of the. Well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because it's every single scholarship athlete, because of the deal that was signed, is going to benefit from the name, image, and likeness rule now. So that's a pitch, like, hey, come to Miami. No matter where you are on the roster, if you're on scholarship, you're going to get a piece of that pie. It's guaranteed. It's like a guaranteed. It's a salary. You're going to make that money if you sign on the dotted line in Miami. And it's like, well, at Texas now, who is one of the biggest brands in the world, and outside of maybe Nike, like you were referring to earlier, like in terms of if you just put that logo on the screen, who's going to know what that is? Nike's, and I would say that the Longhorn logo, the brand, is in the discussion with the most recognizable logos in the entire world. So when you start associating yourself with those brands and you're able to sign in different schools, and they can guarantee you, hey, you come to Miami, you're going to get this. You come to Oregon, you're getting Nike money. If you come here, you're getting this. And that to me is the most fascinating part, and what will sort of will help college football spread that around a little bit more, at least, to where some of these athletes will treat it like a business and will go to where the money is. And then, if they pan out or not at that university as a football player is another story, but that's anytime, that's where I think that this is really going to help, like you said, all of this in every way will even itself out in the end.
Yeah. And that's what I wanted to mention, the hit on the Miami thing, in the sense of, there's this kind of like pearl clutching that's happening now over this name, image, and likeness. Like, oh no, this is going to ruin the sport. This is going to kill us. Like, these things weren't already happening.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what all this is just making it transparent and bringing it out into the open. For years and years, people talk about, why is Oregon so good at football? Like nobody, oh, they must be getting money from Phil Knight. Well, now it's out in the open. And like, oh, there's, these SEC schools are paying players to go there. Was that any different than what Miami's doing right now? What they are doing with this booster that's going to pay every single scholarship athlete? I think it's the same. It's just out in the open. It's just legal to do it now. This is the same stuff that people have been
Right.
like, oh, well, these schools are cheating. Well, now it's legal. So up your game. Schools like Texas,
Right.
and fans of Texas, they're like, oh, well, Texas doesn't do the stuff that happens in the SEC. Well, they should, because now they have the
Yeah.
ability to.
Well, and I would be one. I might be the first person to say, well, I wouldn't be so sure that our precious university is
Right.
totally clean and above
Right.
water here. I think we might be a little bit naive to assume that, but I think that's not you and me, coming from there. But I think maybe general fan, as our friend Tom used to say, like might think, well, Texas doesn't do that. Well, I think Texas was doing it, and at least on a smaller scale. It was happening on the lower level stuff, and now this can be out there.
Play the game.
Actually play the game. Like who's going to be the best at that? And when you already have a brand like the University of Texas has, that is, you got to take advantage of that. That you have to take advantage of that. And with the leverage program that they have on campus, and that's what they're really pushing. And they've been out in front of this for a while now, but it just shows that Chris Del Conte and the athletic department they're ready for this. They're prepared. They're not going to be behind anymore. And everything moving forward is going to be, it seems to be that it's going to be that Texas is going to be out in front of things, if they're not the first, they'll be out in front with the rest of them in terms of being in front of this sort of thing.
And that's the whole thing. And that's where, it's a new arms race in college athletics, which for years and years, going back to like the SEC stuff, people have talked about how the SEC operates in this bubble where they're not going to rat on each other, and they do these things to like get this leg up over the rest of college football, which they have. They recruit well, and they take care of their own. And you can maybe put Ohio State and Clemson in that mix too, in terms of playing the game and what they've been able to do. And people talk, well, there's no parity. It's just the same teams every year. Well, now this just opens it up to allow, for one, I mean, you think about out West, this allows the USCs and the Oregons and these other schools to get back on level footing with the rest of college football. It allows Texas and Oklahoma, schools like Miami, to really I shouldn't say in Oklahoma's case, reassert themselves in the national scene. Cause I mean, shit, OU's been in the mix every year, but like, this is just it's better for the game across the board, I think, because it takes everything out of, you basically had schools that were operating with a certain, I don't want to call it like a certain advantage over others, but like how are you going to compete when a group of schools is operating one way and the others don't?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to lead to the same schools being successful every year. And I think this, combined with the playoff expansion and specifically, you mentioned like the work like that's happening at Tennessee State with Masterpiece Son and stuff like that. Like, you're going to start seeing these smaller programs start to enter the picture as well. And we talk about, last season, like Coastal Carolina, these schools that are now going to be in the conversation every year for playoff spots, even though they're not one of the like Power 5 schools. And I think just all these things happening right now is just going to make the sport better. Like, at least just there's going to be more interest on a year-to-year basis.
I agree. And I think that the expanded playoff, and if they do go to 12, which some people might say 12's a little bit too much, but I think when you take into consideration that those first 4 seeds would get a bye, would get that bye, and wouldn't have to play a game there, that gives the regular season that much, that keeps those regular season games having that meaning, because you're playing for that, to not have to play that week. And in Notre Dame's case, in that scenario, which, you know, again, Notre Dame is Notre Dame. They're already one of the biggest names, biggest brands in college football, especially. I mean, NBC is their home network. I mean, that's kind of a big deal. But now Notre Dame wouldn't, under some of these proposals, wouldn't be able to be eligible for the top 5 seeds, because that would go to the Power 5 conference winners, and then only the top 4 would get those buys. So Notre Dame would never be able to be higher than the 5th or 6th seed in the thing. And knowing that, they're still like, yeah, Notre Dame is on board with that idea, because they know that they'll just, hey, we'll just schedule another game. We'll get, because you guys will be playing conference championship games and we don't have to. So that's
Right.
our bye week, and that's our bye week that's already worked into our schedule. So we'd be down with that. And it's going to allow, like you said, those non-Power 5 conferences that have these great seasons okay, now you want your shot, Central Florida, you're
your
in
shot.
there. You know, here's your shot. Coastal Carolina, you play good enough, you know, whoever it is that's having a great season. You know, so, there's a team, Louisiana, that's coming into town in Austin that, you know, a lot of people are looking at as a team, a non-Power 5 team that could make a lot of noise. And that's definitely, I know that's something that we'll hit on down the road, because that's definitely a tougher first game than Texas fans and the football team might be used to having. But even then, it's like, now I went off on that schedule tangent and I lost my train of thought there. But anyway, man, like, yeah, this is something that it's obviously changing the game in terms of what needs to happen. But it's like you said, making it above the table and putting it all out there.
Yeah.
Is what the important. Oh, we're on the
Yeah.
playoff and stuff. But yeah, this is all going to even things out, and hopefully I'm all for that. If you want to see parity, if you want to see those teams, because honestly, like, people say they want to see those Cinderella teams, but then nobody actually watches the games. Like, the TV ratings show that nobody actually watches those games when they're on TV. So, but from the perspective of being in one of those programs, you're going to get your shot now in a 12-team playoff, if that's the case, and
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well, and that's the thing, like, in the current system, we get to November, and outside of the Southeast and Columbus, Ohio, the rest of the country is essentially switched off at that point, because
Yep.
your team's probably out of, you're not going to be in the playoff. You're just finishing out the season. Where once this 12-team playoff goes in, everybody in the country that's following their team will still be locked in going in November, you know? And that's where it's all about interest. It's about keeping the rest of the country engaged in what's happening in the sport. And that's why, like, I mean, it's going to be fascinating. I mean, and I think it's just good for the sport to have the West Coast and, you know, other parts of the country that are like, hey, we still have a shot at getting into the playoff. And once you get into the playoff, anything can happen, kind of thing.
Right.
But that's where, yeah, it's interesting. Like, you see schools like SMU, which are, you know, doing well in recruiting. They're starting to build a little bit of a program there. Like, that's a school that's got some good connections business wise, all that kind of stuff. Like, is it that far fetched in a few years to be talking about a school like SMU as a team that can try to crack that top 15 and trying to get into the playoff, because they've got this good pitch? You can be in Dallas. If you're from DFW, stay in the area. We got these business connections. So you get the name, image, likeness thing, and, you know, you'll get noticed. We can make a run at a playoff spot, which if you go to another school in the area, you may not get that because of, you know, like, you go play in the Big 12, there's going to be teams ahead of you that are going to be better. Like, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to watch that pit.
And it also could get to the point where none of it matters anyway, and the cream rises to the top.
Well, and that's the thing.
The same people that you see every year are probably going to be the same ones that we're going to see every year anyway. But this is just going to give more people a shot at the end of the year.
Right.
We're talking about this playoff, and with the name, image, and likeness thing, there will be more of an opportunity for more people to, like you said, by the end of the season, to at least have an outside shot to get into that playoff. And then, like you said, once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. It's all bets are off. You just want to get to the dance, right? You just want to get there.
Yeah,
And you get your shot, and then you might get the brakes beaten off of you by 40, or you may end up, winning a game, and it helps change the course of your program forever. And that's sort of the missed
exactly.
opportunity that can be afforded with an expanded playoff, and the parity that can be provided now with the name, image, and likeness. So yeah, it's something that is long overdue, and now that it's here, we're already seeing it obviously in full force. And I'm really curious to see in a full like recruiting cycle,
Right.
like outside of this, because some of these guys have already been recruited. But when we start getting into the 2023 class, really, it's like some of the guys that are that far away from actually being on campus, that it'll be a couple of years in, and they'll be the deals that they'll be signing once they get onto campus. Anyways, that's really what I'm looking forward to with this, seeing like an Arch Manning specifically, whether he ends up on UT's campus or another one, like that, seeing what that class starts to bring with that 2023, I think will be interesting.
Yeah, for sure, because schools are going to have to adjust to their competitors in that recruiting pitch now.
Yep.
You mentioned the leverage program at Texas, but that's, Texas is every school is going to have to tweak that name, image, and likeness pitch to whatever your rivals and your recruiting competitors are doing. We mentioned the Oregon thing, where it's like they are kind of taking a completely, like, I don't want to say different approach than a lot of other schools, but now you have to compete with that. So how are you going to now alter your pitch with the next recruiting cycle to battle against teams like Oklahoma, Oregon, Miami that are, so it's going to be really fascinating. So, but yeah, we'll get more into that as we get closer to the season, talking about, hopefully we'll get some more recruiting news coming up here soon, which we'll hit on a little bit of recruiting later on. But yeah, man, let's move on. Let's get into some Austin FC, man. We've had a lot of action over the last 3 weeks. A lot, actually. What do we?
Yeah. Let's get into La Zona Verde, man. Let's do it. Since the last time we met, Austin FC have played how many? 4 matches in the league.
Yeah, we had the home opener against San Jose.
The home opener on the 19th. Yeah, where we were pretty confident they'd go in and score some goals. Nobody scored that night. It was quite
a lot of chances, though. A lot of chances, but just couldn't break through.
Yeah, and that was, we were sitting in the supporter section, raising hell and making a bunch of noise, and it was a really great environment, but just came away a scoreless draw, and just wanting to see more, wanting to see that breakthrough. And then they go on the road after that, lose to Minnesota 2-0.
Yep.
So, still hadn't scored in a little bit, then come back home against Columbus in a game that we were also at. And same environment, man. I mean, would you agree that the environment was still, up there, and the crowd was raucous, and just, again, so many opportunities, but in game 2, they just couldn't break through either, man. And then Kerry, the third home game, Portland Timbers come to town, man. Again, we were there in the supporter section, and the floodgates opened.
They sure did. And I think that was the best environment out of the first 3 home games. I think for a weeknight too. And it was, that was a raucous atmosphere. And when Gallagher scored that first goal, like, I think the place was just, blew the roof off. So yeah, great atmosphere. But we're starting to pick up on a little bit of a story here with these injuries, which we'll get into. So the most recent match was against LAFC this past week. A 2-0 loss, but when friend of the show, Danny Pereira, went down in the first half, the game was essentially because the first 20 or 30 minutes for Austin were relentless. Scoring chances, they looked how they looked against Portland, and in those, they were racking up corners, racking up shots, and just couldn't break through. And then Pereira gets hurt, and it was all downhill from there. Basically, they weren't able to, weren't able to recover really. They just were on the back heel the rest of the game. And this is one thing, and I don't know if you can really put this on Josh Wolf. This is multiple times now. Somebody gets injured and everything just goes out the window and they just cannot hold themselves together. So we had Pereira for LAFC. You mentioned the Minnesota loss when Nick Lima got hurt in that Minnesota game. It was over. I mean, they scored those 2 fairly quick goals and could have scored more. But they just look completely out of sorts. And we go back to like when Romagna got hurt. I think it was the Nashville match, and then they scored immediately after that. Like there's this kind
2
of
minutes later, yeah.
There's this kind of like, it's almost like he gets his lineup set and the strategies and everything are set for that, but that an injury throws everything out and he doesn't have a contingency plan for formations and all those kinds of things. It's like which I don't know. I mean, there's so many injuries right now on this team that like, I mean, I guess what can you really do? But it's obvious to see that how important Pereira is, at least for this team going like on the attack, because the way that they played against Portland, like it's just, when he went out against LA, it was like this team was not even going to get close to scoring a goal.
And we've been really, craving that Alex Ring, Denny Pereira midfield link up and that growth that Pereira will receive playing next to Ring. And that's like, I just wish, sometimes the best ability is availability, and the guy can't seem to really stay on the pitch right now. And it's unfortunate because, like you said, it just seemed like he was a game changer from the moment he was on the pitch that game. And then it just turned off when he left. And I think we'll see if that continues to be something that we have to, worry about with Wolf as a manager, not being able to make those in-game adjustments when the wrench is thrown in it. When he makes his substitutions, first substitutions usually about minute 60, and then coming about 72, 75 with a couple, and then the 85th minute or so. He's really meticulous. He knows the times that he wants to have his subs in, and it just seems like you said, when that gets thrown off and he has to put somebody in a position earlier than he wanted to, or a different person, maybe even that he had planned on being in at that time, it hadn't worked out in his favor. So we'll see if that's something that continues to happen. But we just gotta. There has to be more of that. I don't know. I guess with when Austin haven't been able to convert, they definitely haven't really recovered from being down in their last couple of losses, with being scoreless. Like,
right.
They're still figuring that stuff out, though. Still a relatively young team in terms of how long they've had to play with each other, and they're not even maybe half a season into their first season as a club. So they're still learning how to, who's going to be the person to step into these roles, who's going to be. And I think that's why giving Wolf a little bit of a leash here, a bit longer of a leash here in terms of letting him figure that out, right? Letting him figure out who those guys are that can fill in certain spots if you have to sub somebody in after 30 and know that, he can go the remaining 60. Like, that's going to be somebody that I know can fill that role. He's learning, but like some of these guys, and you mentioned Lima, like that was a guy who was just finding his stride before he got hurt. Pereira already looked like a difference maker on the pitch, and then he gets hurt. So how do they come back from that? How do they make those adjustments? Will really tell the tale, because you've noted a few times and just in conversation that there's still Austin FC are still a couple of points only out of a playoff spot.
Only 2 points out,
right?
Only 2 points out.
I mean, all things considered, starting with as many matches on the road as you did, coming back home, not finding your rhythm until the third match, and then the floodgates open and you score 4, and but then you're on the road against. Well, no, the LAFC match was at home, right?
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's where
so you lose
like
that one at home, but yeah.
Yeah, you got Tigres
that's
coming to town Tuesday for a friendly, which will be
Right.
important to get some guys. Like, we're not going to see Stuver play that night. We're not. This is going to be pure rotation friendly, which
Good. Yeah.
people that are coming for that game may not like that. But that's the truth. The most important thing is the league. And I know, they want to put on a good show against Tigres, but like the most important thing is the league and keeping guys healthy. And that's going to be a rotation squad. But yeah, they're only 2 points out of the playoffs. Seattle comes to town next in the league. That's going to be a tough one. They're top of the league. We mentioned how difficult that was going on the road there and getting a 0-0 draw against Seattle. That's going to be a tough matchup. But then after that, going to Vancouver, well, I think because of COVID regulations and stuff, I think they're playing in Utah or something like that because Vancouver can't travel in and out of the country. But regardless, that's the bottom of the table team in the West. You should be able to get points out of that. Colorado comes to Hush.
Hey, got a visitor.
Zeke.
Oh, Zeke boy.
And Colorado comes to town on a nice hot weekend, and they're playing fairly well, but that's another game. Austin's already gone up to Colorado and gotten 3 points from up there. So you'd imagine they could put up a good fight. Then Houston comes to town, and then a trip to Frisco to play, the team known as FC Dallas. But like
those guys, yeah.
Yeah, but these are all teams that this is where a lot of points can get made up. And yeah, that's what is frustrating as it can be, like that Minnesota game on the road and then LAFC coming to town where it's like, or even the draws at home against San Jose and Columbus where there were so many chances that, I think these things are going to start balancing out point wise. And especially now we got the new signing with Moussa Jite coming in from France and the Senegalese striker who's going to wear the number 99 shirt. I know we were talking about how excited we are about that, but like they're addressing the issues. And I think we're going to see another big designated player signing in this transfer window. There's so many rumors that get thrown about specific players, so we won't really discuss too many specifics, but they're addressing the problems, which is all you ask for. The club is growing. The atmosphere at home is great. And I think, I still think this is a team that can be in the playoffs at the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's sort of what we said, they said they expected. Wolf said that. The front office has said that from like, we expect to be in the playoffs. Like this is not, we don't plan to be a bottom feeder. Like we plan to be in the playoffs immediately. And it looks like that they're right there, and with a nice stretch right here where you get 6-7 points, you start getting 7, maybe you even sneak 8 or so points out of that 4-game stretch, and you're in the thick of things. Like you're in that puts them into the playoff picture right there. But it's what it's going to take to be able to. This is the sort of run, like you said, that you have to take advantage of in your schedule.
Right.
Especially if you're a team that's gelling and learning about itself. And like, when you get these sort of things in the schedule, okay, you got to, hopefully you can at least get a point at home out of Colorado. Like you said, Vancouver's struggling right now. You get 3 there. And then between Houston and, like you said, the team from Frisco, you get at least 3. You win at least one of those, you get another draw. That's what the expectation, I feel like that's what their expectation is too. They're holding themselves, to a high standard. Stuver, after that match against LAFC, he had a little bit of a slip up, and he goes on Twitter after, and he's like, guys, that one's on me. I got us in a hole. And of course, nobody's going to let him take that on himself, because he's really been the best player on the pitch this entire season for them. nobody's going to let him take that. And really, everything after that you see from a player, from the verified Austin FC account, from all that stuff is, we're a team. We do this as a team. Everybody's together. We're all on board on this. We move on forward together. Those sort of things that
Right.
they're not going to let the Stuver wear that like he, but that's the type of cat that he is, though. He's gonna sit out there and say, hey, I screwed up, guys, but we'll be better moving forward. And he knows that. I know that he will. And the club has, his teammates have that belief in him. The fans have that belief in him. And like I said, we mentioned this many times. He's the best player. He's been the best player all season for them. So
he's played every minute. So he deserves a rest Tuesday against Tigres.
Yeah. So Austin FC supporters, if you're going out to the match on Tuesday, make sure you support that whoever is between the pipes that day, and whoever else is up there too, because this is the sort of thing with the injuries that are occurring that when your depth is tested as a club, you got to be able to see guys in real life game action,
right?
Just to get a read for how they're going to react and who needs to play. And this is going to help Josh Wolf figure out a little bit more about who some of these guys are and how they respond in certain situations, and if they're going to be those guys that can, okay, if I'm in a pinch, who do I got to go to? Who's going to get the first crack at it? And so that's why this is super important for some of those players. And I think we'll see a sense of urgency from them too, from these guys, that maybe if you've watched a lot of Austin FC, you might not have seen their name or heard their names very often, just because they don't get a lot of runs. So you'll see a few of those names. I mean, you'll see a few of those regular. I think we'll see a lot of the defenders out there, your normal defense out there, I think. But some of these guys are nicked up. They need a little bit of rest, and so we'll see a lot of the younger guys and some of the players that we haven't heard from very much. So it's going to be good against Tigres, who obviously, what were they, runner up?
Yeah, Club World Cup finalists. They lost to Bayern Munich in the Club World Cup final. So you can make the argument that essentially finished, this past season was the second best club in the world. I mean, I know it's okay. Well, that's, but they won their Continental Champions League to get to the Club World Cup. And, they got all the way to the final in that competition against, the champions of Europe, champions of Asia, Africa, and so on, and South America. That's quite an achievement. And they're a really solid club with a lot of support, and it's going to be an interesting environment because there's going to be a lot of Tigres fans in the building. But it's that's the thing. What a better, you mentioned like getting some young players that haven't been able to play much. It's also an opportunity for some guys to get right. Romagna hasn't really had a lot of play since recovering from his injury. This would be a great night for Romagna to go out there and get 60, 65 minutes to get back match fit. We mentioned Gite. The French league ended in this, in May. This is, he hasn't been playing. He's been training, but this is an opportunity to get him some live reps, maybe bring him on if he's available for 25, 30 minutes to start getting him ready to hopefully start against Seattle on the 22nd. So getting some guys fitness, getting them, getting out there and actually getting some legit playing time, and getting their fitness up. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I don't think you're going to see Dominguez. I don't think you're going to see Stuver. Probably no Ring. Just these players that have been clocking minutes for every single match. And, Fagundes is probably going to get a rest. He might not like that, but,
Yeah, well deserved though.
Yeah, they'll have to chain him to the bench to keep him from going in on his own. Because he just, like he mentioned, he was like, I'll run and run and run until I just physically can't anymore. Like they have to drag me off, like for substitutions. And it's like, he's shown it. He's what he does.
That's not just talk. That's legit. That guy just does nothing but run. It's amazing, and you'd love to have guys like that on your team. And he's definitely one of those motor guys like that just never stops. But I think you're right. I think that's somebody that we might not see much from.
Maybe a few minutes or something at the end of the match, but just
But that would be a well-deserved rest for him if he did get the night off. So
yeah, we'll see. Should be interesting Tuesday night, and then we should We should have another show before the Seattle game so we can recap the action
Yeah.
against Tigres and kind of see where things are looking from there. So yeah, man, what else we got going on?
Oh, it's Sluggin Horns, right? They finished their season up since the last time we met. That was they were about to start actually. So okay, I believe we recorded right before the College World Series began. Is that correct?
Yep.
So we were right there. And so they were starting off against their nemesis from the first game of the season, Mississippi State, and just ran into Bednar, who's, you know, one of the best pitchers in the game, in the nation. He was just on fire. And Ty Madden was great. Ty Madden was Ty Madden, but you run up against Mississippi State and that buzzsaw.
You strike out 21 times. It doesn't matter how good your pitcher is that night, and that's what happened.
How good you think. Yeah. So I mean,
yeah, too bad.
Started off in that hole in the basically what's the consolation losers bracket or whatever. You start off on that side, and then, you know, you beat Tennessee, good club. Then you come back through. You beat Virginia, who was one of the hottest teams coming into the World Series, and then you get Mississippi State. You got to beat Mississippi State twice.
Got them once.
Got him once, but couldn't finish the deal in game 2 there. And just what a great season for the Sluggin Horns and Coach Pierce. And that was quite a journey to follow. With when we started the year off, we had expectations for them to be a super regional type of a team. And, you know, possible to reach a College World Series. But I think that before the season started, we were mostly, they should make it to host a super regional, or at least make it to a super regional, and that was the expectation. Well, they exceeded that. They and so many different guys step up throughout the season. Young guys that will be coming back as well. That Coach Pierce has to really be happy with the way that the younger players stepped up in meaningful moments, and knows that for a couple of years to come, at least, this program is going to be in really good hands.
Yeah, it's in good shape. The program is healthy and in a really good spot. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like Chris Del Conte talks about wanting to be, like the expectations for all the programs are to be in the top 10. And if you're in the top 10, you're going to be in the conversation for, national championships, conference championships. And I think we talked about it here before the start of the College World Series about how far does this team have to go in this College World Series to not feel like it was a letdown or something like that. And, that opening night was like, oh God, you strike out 21 times. Like, is this team even, I don't know, Mississippi State was the cause of a lot of that, but still nearly almost came, there in the ninth inning in that first game, almost pulled off a comeback, but they fulfilled those expectations. And especially like we talked about, you get to Omaha, anything can happen. Any team can get hot. It's, you just get there. You just get to Omaha and let the luck and everything fall where it falls. And yeah, I think the program's in good shape. I think the expectations going into next year are, because a lot of guys are coming back. And was Jay bailing out on me here?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My headphones battery died, so we've got to go rogue here.
I thought you were bailing out on me. Looked like you were going to hang up the call. Like, all right, I've had enough talking about this 21 strikeout action.
As long as you can still hear me, we're good.
No, you're good. You're good. No, I was just saying, just get in the top 10, get to Omaha, and they didn't win it this year, but they finished number 3 in the country, and I think that's a good expectation to have for next season. Just be in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that's what the expectation is, right? That's what Chris Del Conte expects from every single program on campus, and I think David Pierce, because I know that there were still some doubters, and I think I was included in that group as to whether or not he could do this consistently at the University of Texas. And for me, now for me, that's all out the window. Like, I have no more doubt. Like, that David Pierce is the guy to to be, I can't, not that I didn't think he was a good manager, but there's still like, you get to Omaha and you can do that. And then it's like, how are you going to, you saw him manage this roster this year. Like it was genius. It was brilliant to watch the way that he managed this roster this year, and to just, he pushed all the right buttons. He called all the right numbers, and it was really a season of managing brilliance by Pierce. And I don't like to throw that sort of thing around, like in terms of when you talk about managers being responsible for a club's success more. I mean, they got to call the shots, right? You can have all the talent, but if you're not putting them in the right places to be successful, and we've seen that in this football program here on campus, you've got talent. Are you putting them into positions to be successful? And Coach Pierce this year, he did that in basically every step of the way, and found the right guys to be there and got the most out of his players. And that to me shows like that is the mark of a top tier coach or manager, or whatever you want to call it. When you can get the most out of every single person on your roster and know where you need to use them to make them be successful, that's the mark of a great coach, of a great manager. And Pierce did that this year. And I got to say, I'm impressed. I was impressed by his performance this year. And like, aside from how good this roster is going to be, Antico, that leaves a big hole in any lineup when you have a guy like Antico leave. But still, Melendez isn't going anywhere. You've got all of these guys. There's so many options that are coming back. It's in great shape. Good place right now.
It's in great shape. I agree with you on Pierce. I think the big thing for me with this team going into this season and throughout the season was how they would respond to adversity. And, we kind of like, all right, we talk about those big series against Tech and TCU and those kinds of things, or, they'd lose a game, something where you go, okay, this where, not that he would lose control, but kind of like, is this where this team, there was some moments where you almost felt like they were overperforming. Like there was something kind of like they're beating up on the softer part of the schedule. And you're like, is this team as good as they seem to be? And we'll find out once they lose a game against a tough opponent. And then if it starts to go off the rails a little bit, and it never did. And even losing that game in the fashion that they did against Mississippi State to open the College World Series, that was the perfect opportunity for them to hang their heads and go, okay, well, I guess this just isn't going to work out for us. And the way that they responded against Tennessee and against Virginia, and then again to Mississippi State, and still taking that the third game of the College World Series against Mississippi State, took it to a walk-off type situation in the ninth against them, the team that ended up winning the national championship. But the way that they responded after that first loss is, to me, really indicative of how Pierce connects with this team. They don't get down, they just keep fighting, keep pushing through. And that's all you want. The talent's going to be there, the recruiting's doing well, but just the way that they respond to getting kicked in the face is like they just get right back up and keep going. So, yeah, good season. It's been a little while now, so can feel better about it. But you get to that point, you of course want to win it, but can't complain about going back to Omaha again. So let's go for a 38th trip next season. So
why not?
What else are we doing?
Why not? Well, might as well live in Omaha. Let's do it.
Right.
Not literally, because I don't think that. Sorry to our Omaha viewers if I offended you there, but but yeah, I think that's the expectation now. That's the thing, is when you play this well and you manage that well and you show what you're capable of, and you have, like, now it's Omaha or bust for this program. It's going in now. It's like if the skeptics are now, like, if David Pierce's skeptics are gone now, then obviously, like, every single season it's okay. You're gonna get to Omaha, right? Like, we're getting back to Omaha this season, right? You're going to Omaha, right, Coach? So that's a good problem to have, though.
Yeah, I think the skeptics are still going to be there with Pierce until he wins the whole thing.
I
Because
mean,
that's just that's the nature of expectations with the Texas baseball program. You're not going to be put on the same level as Gus and Augie until you get a ring.
yeah,
And that's just
but
the
if you
nature of
get
it. And
to,
that's the level of expectation at Texas. And I don't, you don't take the Texas job without knowing that those are going to be the expectations. So
yeah, and that's true. And I guess what I obviously, if you're at Texas, you should, the plan is to get to Omaha every year. But now, when you've shown that you can do it in multiple ways as a coach, like
right,
now
right,
it's really now that you don't the bar you've raised
right.
you've raised the bar for yourself now as a manager. So how are you going to respond to that? And Tanner Witt coming back is not a bad place to start. Like the club is in great hands. I mean, it is in a great place and is in great
Yeah,
hands with Coach Pierce too. So yeah, no, the future's bright.
for sure, for sure. Well, man, let's wrap this thing up. What do we got? Speaking of bright future, the Texas basketball program might have a little bit of news coming up here on the horizon. So, Jay, you want to tell us a little bit about this transfer that might be coming on down to the 40 acres if everything breaks the right way?
Well, and we've talked about how good of a job Chris Beer has been living in the transfer portal and has done a really nice job with sort of filling out this roster and players that that's the thing about this is, we talk about we've had some experience on campus recently of having new coaches, and it takes time for coaches to get used to their rosters that they have because of the way that college sports is put together. It's like you just have to inherit this thing, and you're stuck with them for all of them for 4 years and whatever. And now Chris Beard has been able to come in and completely build this roster around the style of player that he wants to coach and guys that he's seen play and guys that he's recruited before and he's familiar with these guys. It's not coming into a bunch of Jimmys and Joes that he doesn't know.
Right.
He's like, he has experience with almost all of these players. And if not, they're guys that have wanted to play for Chris Beard and they want to play for Chris Beard. So it's like, now that he's already done such a nice job, and then you hear a player like Marcus Carr is in the transfer portal, who's deemed is the best player in the portal.
Yeah, he was ranked by all the services as he is the top ranked transfer player in the country.
Like across the board, like consensus top player in the portal. And what Chris Beard gets you is you're at least in the conversation for a Marcus Carr.
The way this is looking, it looks like it's more than just being in the conversation. Like there's a legit, this is legit interest on both sides.
Right, but that gets you in the door. And when you're Chris Beard, the fact that Chris Beard's on this campus right now, I feel like is a big reason why Texas is in that conversation.
Well, absolutely.
And why, like you said,
absolutely,
it's past maybe just the conversation point. This is a game. This would put Texas and our Longhorn insider, Mike Holland, has mentioned this to us before as well. This would make Texas the #1 team in the country.
Yeah. I mean, just the way that, what was it we saw last week or so? There was what was it, like one of those power ranking type polls about kind of like, here's the early look at the top 15 or whatever. And what, Texas was third on that?
Third.
Like projected as the third best team in the country. This is prior, obviously, he hadn't committed or anything yet, but prior to this Marcus Carr news, like Mike has said, if Marcus Carr commits, this is not just this is national title expectations, right. Year one. And
it could happen. And it might just happen, this is, I'm honestly now, I would be disappointed if it didn't happen.
Man, I just want to win a tournament game. Just beat Abilene Christian, man.
Oh, come on. Come on.
I don't ask for much.
Oh, Shaka's gone.
I don't ask for much. Just win a tournament game.
for some reason, I don't mind kicking Tom Herman around, but I just can't. I don't like doing it to Shaka, and he deserves it though. Like that's
Absolutely.
the thing is, he just. I mean,
It's Abilene Christian, man.
I know.
And they're like 6'1" center or whatever it was that just bullied. Like, come on.
Yeah.
It's whatever. Just win a tournament game. That's my expectation for Chris Beard in year one. Win a tournament game. Everything else is gravy.
All right. See, I'm already way past that. I'm already thinking Elite Eight, man. Like I'm already there. I'm set. I can't. This is Mike's fault too, because this is all. So Mike, if you're watching and you made it this far into the show today, this is your fault because you got us hyped last year for this, and Shaka let us down. But I'm invested now. Like this is like, with Chris Beard on board, like I'm in it. So like,
absolutely.
I'm gonna blame Mike for this.
This team can run the table in the regular season, run the table in the Big 12 tournament, and they'll still get to that first tournament game. And I'm still gonna just win this one. Just win this one. That's where I'm at.
I'm on board.
I believe in what Beard's doing, all those things, but it's just after putting in so much faith with Shaka and faith with various coaches over the previous years, I just want to actually see this one first. Just show me before I complete. Like I think it's gonna be a very fun season, but it's been so long since we won a tournament game. Just win a damn tournament game.
I'm just a jaded lover that I'm going to keep going back to this basketball program. Now I'm in it. I can't help it.
You like
I'm
the
just gonna
pain.
keep coming back for more.
You like the pain.
Hey,
I guess we all do, right? That's why we do this. That's why we.
This is why we do
programs.
this. This is why we do this, and we happen to follow quite a few clubs that bring and teams that bring us that pain on a regular basis. But hey, that's a part of what being a fan is. But if you're talking about, Marcus Carr bringing 19.5 points, 5 assists, almost a steal and a half a game, I'm willing to buy into that. Which, because again, that makes Texas that I feel like Texas would at least be top 3 in the whole
for sure.
preseason.
For sure.
And they might already be. I mean, that with the roster that Beard has, that's a top 10 team without bouncing a basketball yet, in my opinion. And I think that he has every right to prove that that's what the sort of roster that he has. And I think Chris Beard will. I'm pumped, man. Like I haven't been excited about Longhorn basketball in a long time. We got into it this season, and we love to talk about it here on the show. And they ran the table, and not ran the table, but in the Big 12 tournament, I guess they ran the table, and you win that, and then we're riding high, and then. So I mean, I'm hungry for more of that riding high with this basketball program, and Beard's the right guy to do it, and. Yeah, he's already put together quite a roster, and Marcus Carr would just be.
I think, obviously we have to see how it looks on the court, but I think he's exceeded my expectations when we were talking about him potentially being the guy for this job. I know, we were talking about Royale Ivy and kind of the difference between the, I think I'm feeling better and better about this Chris Beard hire in terms of the type of program that he's going to build and like the way that he recruits. Like he's not recruiting to Lubbock anymore. Like you talk about, we mentioned with Oregon, like firing up the war machine. I mean, that's what he's doing in Austin right now with this program. A new arena on the way. Like you couldn't ask for a better set of circumstances for him to come in and build this thing the way that he wants it to be built. But yeah, I'm super excited about it. I'm looking forward to watching this team as the final season at Club Irwin.
Just knock that ugly building down. Just do it.
Get the wrecking ball out. That's what they should do. Just have Chris Beard with the wrecking ball. It'd be like Tom Herman with the sledgehammer in the locker room.
Yeah.
Yeah, where he almost came back and hit him in the face.
Hitting the thing and reverberating back in his hands and almost like.
which should have been
falling over.
which should have been the biggest omen ever.
Yeah, what a jabroni.
But yeah, maybe not. Maybe don't have Chris Beard take the wrecking ball to the Irwin Center.
Yeah, but I have full confidence that Chris Beard wouldn't screw it up.
It wouldn't bounce back and hit him in the like.
Yeah.
Whoa, like a Looney
Sad
Tunes.
news on campus
Yeah.
today. Longhorn basketball coach Chris Beard has a tragic wrecking ball accident. Like,
It'd be very on brand for the way things have
It
gone.
would be
40 acres the last decade, but
Oh well.
well, we'll call it on that note, man.
Well, let's wrap it on that.
Yeah. Oh man, well this is good. It's been great to get back at it. Yeah, let's do this again next week. Let's get it going. We'll have Austin FC recap. Maybe we'll have some Marcus Carr news. I know he's got some visits planned, so I don't know if that'll be decided by next week's show. But yeah, man, we'll see what happens. We'll get to it.
Let's do it, man. Good show. Thanks for listening, everybody, and thanks for watching. We'll see y'all next week.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.
Welcome.
ATX representing. Fatal, baby.
Falling on 6 on a Saturday. Can the drip and swing down?